Producing a podcast or video involves many details, including piecing items together, such as video, audio, and image files. Podcasts are normally thought of as audio only, but podcast can also be in the form of a video. As you begin to produce your podcast or video, you will find that there will be many bits and pieces of information needed to complete the project. Those bits and pieces could comprise such things as images, videos, audio, etc. Using a template of folders on your computer and a document entry form to enter podcast or video information will allow you to compartmentalize all information in one location, which will help you complete your project in a methodical and orderly fashion. Basically, all files needed for one particular podcast will be under one folder, and all files needed for one particular video will be under one folder. To reach your full potential of having great podcast or video, it is extremely helpful to build a strong organized foundation where your content will be located on your computer prior to beginning your project. This video will show you how templates consisting of file folders on your computer and an entry form to complete for each podcast or video will help eliminate the frustration that being unorganized can cause. Building a foundation to organize and assemble your content during content creation will allow you to produce a podcast or video in an efficient, logical way without the stress, errors, and poor content creation caused by being unorganized. Creating a podcast or video from content from files organized under specific folders for that podcast or video makes a big difference in the productivity and quality of your podcast or video. This method of organizing, using folders, is simply practicing that well-known saying, a place for everything and everything in its place. This idiom, a place for everything and everything in its place, has stood the test of time, with this idiom first associated with people in history, like Benjamin Franklin, Samuel Smiles, and Mrs. Isabella Beeton. Benjamin Franklin, who lived in the 1700s, among many things, was a writer, printer, publisher, scientist, inventor, diplomat, statesman, and political philosopher. Samuel Smiles was the author of the book, Self-Help, and lived in the 1800s and early 1900s. Mrs. Isabella Beeton, who lived in the 1800s, was an editor and writer, and was the author of the book, Mrs. Beeton's Book of Household Management. The Oxford Book of Quotations mentions that this phrase, a place for everything and everything in its place, has at least been around since the 17th century. This phrase, a place for everything and everything in its place, is just as important now as it has been since its first known origin in the 1700s. Just as this saying, a place for everything and everything in its place, had importance with these notable people, and countless others over history, we all would be wise to also incorporate this advice, place for everything and everything in its place, into our lives. Building a firm foundation of having specific folders as a place to organize and keep content for each specific podcast or each specific video you produce will save much time and reduce frustration, allowing you to produce a better podcast or video. For writing dates, for computer files and computer folders, a good way is to use the military method of naming dates, YYMMDD. Christmas in the year 2021 would be named 21/12/25. Naming dates in the YYMMDD format allows for proper computer sorting. Also, naming your dates using numbers in the YYMMDD format allows you to easily proceed to the next highest date because it will also be the next highest number. For instance, if you had 5 folders or files, with the beginning of the name, same as the first 5 days of the year 2021, the dates would be written as 21/01/01 and 21/01/02 and 21/01/03 and 21/01/04 and 21/01/05. This illustrates how these chronological dates are also ascending numbers when sorted in ascending order. When you use dates written in YYMMDD format, files and folders will sort in perfect chronological order when sorting in ascending or descending order due to adding the date in military date format at the beginning of the folder or file name. This is an image of the folder structure recommended to keep on your computer, and simply copy the folder named YYMMDD project name under a folder where you keep all your podcast, or a folder under where you keep all your videos, and then rename the folder name YYMMDD project name to the date the podcast or video was published, and change project name to the name of the podcast episode or video. For example, if you had a video entitled Merry Christmas that was posted on Christmas Day in the year 2021, then after you copy the template folders to your computer, then change the folder named YYMMDD project name to 21/12/25 Merry Christmas. I will show you an example how efficient naming the first part of folder file names is using the military date format when creating a new template for each new video or podcast. In this example, videos are in a folder under the folder YouTube, sorted in ascending order by date. Example 191004, name of video with 191004 being the date that video was published in YYMMDD military date format. And in this example, podcasts are in a folder under the folder episodes. Optionally, rather than sorting podcast by date, you may wish to sort podcast by episode number. This example shows you how you can sort by podcast episode number rather than by date, and at the end of the folder name, add that date that the podcast was published in YYMMDD military date format. Example of a podcast folder name: EP 001, episode name 190722. With 190722 being the date the podcast episode was published. This is a description of the use of each folder. Folder templates, stored in the folder, template project folders, copy and paste. This is the folder that you copy to a location on your computer to archive the template until needed. When a template is needed for a new podcast or video, then copy the folder YYMMDD project name to a location on your computer that will be under the folder where you maintain all your videos, or where you maintain all your podcast, depending on if this template is for a video or podcast, and then rename the folder YYMMDD project name by changing YYMMDD to the date of the new video or podcast, and then rename project name to the name of the new video or podcast. When using these templates, and using a computer in general, you will find many uses of copy and paste to keep from having to retype information. Copy this folder, and all folders under this folder, to folder you store videos and podcast in YYMMDD project name, and then rename YYMMDD to the date the podcast or video is published, and rename project name with the name of the video or podcast. Folder with file providing description of video or podcast in the folder, description for video or podcast. Folder with media content, audio, images and video, that is used to create video or podcast. Media. If your video or podcast editing software can export a project file, then export the project file to this folder. Project archive. Under this rendered folder are folders, final and pre-final, to render podcast or video files. Final is final podcast or video, ready to publish online. Pre-final is placed to render podcast or videos to, that are to be edited further, prior to publishing online. Scripts is folder, where you keep scripts for podcast or video. Inside the folder, named description for YouTube or podcast, is a text or Word document, form to enter with the same information, that is required to enter when you post either a podcast or video. There is one form to enter, if you are entering information when posting a podcast, to your podcast hosting service, and a different form to enter, if you are entering information when posting a video, to your video hosting service. For your convenience, you can download the template by entering oportuno.org/folder/podcast files/template.zip into your browser window. The download will include the entire folder structure, as well as the forms in the description for YouTube or podcast folder to enter when you post either a podcast or video. This download URL will also be available in the description area of this video. When you extract the zip file to your computer, you will find in the folder named description for YouTube or podcast sample input forms to enter information when posting a podcast or video. These sample input forms are available both in a MS Word file and a text file. It is helpful to enter all information in these forms prior to posting your podcast or video. That way, when you sign into your podcast or video hosting site, the primary information you need to post a podcast or video will already be available in these input forms. These input forms basically is the information that your podcast or video hosting sites will require when posting a video. You can make up your own input forms or modify these forms how best you see fit. One thing that helps to save an orderly progression of rendered audio or video files during the editing process is to add a number at the end of a rendered audio or video file until a final acceptable audio or video file is achieved. For example, if you have rendered a video named myvideo.mp4 3 times so far, and do not yet have a final video you are happy with, then rendering the same video you are editing, with file names, with a number at the end, provides a history of previously rendered videos, as shown in the example file names shown below. myvideo01.mp4, myvideo02.mp4, myvideo03.mp4. By naming video or audio files this way, provides you a progression of videos until you have a final version that you are happy with. If you somehow are not happy with the current audio or video file, this method of saving audio and video files with a number at the end will allow you to go back to a previous edited audio or video file. And once you are happy with an audio or video file, just rename the file without a number at the end of the file name. Hopefully, you will find that by using this template of how to structure folders on your computer will make your audio and video editing more enjoyable and productive. Thanks for watching. Please check out our website, oportuno.org, for more items that may be of interest to you. Thank you.